Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. If this is your first time seeing one of my webinars, or you've never participated in the CPBS program, or seen a YouTube video, buckle up. If you have been here before, been in the CPBS class, taken a self-study course, you are going to want to stay through the end of this webinar because I've added a couple of slides. And listen, I've been doing this PBM, just had my 10-year anniversary, and I'm excited about what I've got to share with you today. My name is Tyrone Squires. I am managing director and founder of both the Pharmacy Benefit Institute of America and Transparent RX. There's no argument about this. There's no one that's going to question it. We are the first fiduciary model PBM in the country. We were founded in 2014 as a fiduciary PBM model, and it's no coincidence. The reason behind that stems from my, let's call it, luck of having worked with a pharmaceutical manufacturer, Eli Lilly, starting in 2002. Did that for about 4 years, worked my way inside and negotiated paying rebates with PBMs, leaving that organization, great organization. By the way, much of what we do at Transparent RX around focus on the patients, believe it or not, that resonated with me. We talked a lot about the patients at Eli Lilly. When I left there, I started a mail order pharmacy, ran it for about 5 years, sold it in 2010, right when specialty drugs were taking off. The next step, because of what I had learned negotiating with drug wholesalers and negotiating with large PBMs, which is why I still have a bone to pick with them today. We'll talk about that here in a second. Negotiating with them and the reimbursements being offered, take it or leave it. I said, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. Let's pick a fight and let's try to do this thing right. And so here we are today. If you have any questions for me, you can send those questions to me via the chat feature on your interface there, your control panel, or you can raise your hand, at which point everyone is muted, at which point I will unmute you, and then you'll have the option where we can have a back and forth. And you're only going to get as much out of this as you put into it, whether it's taking notes, questions, let's have a dialogue back and forth, even if you want to wait until after the webinar. So here we go. By the time this presentation concludes, I want you to know how PBMs make money. And it's more complicated than you may believe, because they're moving the goalposts, it seems like, every year. I want you to feel something other than indifference about what you learned today. And then I want you to start taking some action around what you learned. This lawsuit was filed by the city of Rockford, Illinois, back in 2018. Well, you're probably thinking, well, Tyrone, wow, that was 6 years ago. Sit tight. The city of Rockford, Illinois filed a lawsuit when they learned that their PBM was acting as the sole distributor of a product called Acthar, in which they were paying over $6,000 a month for, when the drug could have been procured for less than $100. The reason that Express Scripts, well, there's really probably two reasons. You can see one on your screen. The reason Express Scripts didn't pursue lower costs because they benefited from the higher cost of that product. Let's fast forward 2024. July of this year, Express Scripts settled this lawsuit, and you can go online and pull this information up yourself. It's public. They settled this lawsuit for over $3 million. 60 Minutes ran a special about this lawsuit 6 years ago. Express Scripts responded to questions via a letter to 60 Minutes in which they flatly said, we're not contractually obligated to contain costs. As a PBM, there's nothing more important than that. One could argue that patient outcomes are right there by controlling costs, but that's what we're hired to do. And they said we're not contractually obligated to do that. And by the way, I don't completely blame Express Scripts. They're only going to try to get away with what their clients allow them to get away with. That's why education is so important. And so here we are today in 2024. Wells Fargo hit with a class action lawsuit. Apparently, the city of Rockford, Illinois lawsuit wasn't enough, and all the other myriad of information that has been coming out about these bad actors for years. If Wells Fargo isn't enough, Johnson & Johnson, similarly, employees saying that Johnson & Johnson didn't do enough to help contain their cost. I don't know what's going to happen with these lawsuits, but all I know is that they are legitimate and they are fair complaints to issue. One that's not getting enough attention, the Mayo Clinic. Again, similar situation. Information asymmetry, or let's call it plainly information failure, is simply this. When one party has access to information that another party does not have access to, the party with the information and the knowledge to interpret that information is going to use it to its financial advantage. That is what PBMs have been doing, taking advantage of information asymmetry, because they don't want you to know or your clients to know how much money they are making. Case in point, this happens to be a health insurer. And this health insurer itself has over 30,000 plan participants. I have this meeting with this health insurer. The next step agreement with the health insurer was to try to attain your own claims data. They went back to the broker who has their own pharmacy benefit consulting firm in-house and came back to this director of compensation and benefits of the health insurer and said, we can't get you your own claims data. That is a perfect example of information asymmetry. And the PBMs can only get away with it when they have participants in that tactic. This is what information success looks like. This is a rebate remittance report. And when we pay rebates out to our clients, this report accompanies those rebate dollars. The point of rebates, and we're going to get more complicated as we move through the webinar, but I'm just trying to wet your whistle here. Let's call it what it is. I'm trying to tease you so you stick around. The point of rebates is to get the plan to lowest net cost. It isn't so HR could have some extra money to pay bills or hire employees or have an annual company party, department party. It is to lower the cost of drugs, and hopefully those lower costs end up at the point of sale to benefit the patient. Without this level of detail, how do you know that's happening? You don't. So PBMs love to just every quarter send the company, the client, a bucket of money, a single line item. Here's what rebates are paid, and here's the time period. There you go. Be happy with that. That's information failure. This is information success. I remember this as we progress. I could even go, this goes as far back, this 2012 here goes as far back as 2002 when I was with Eli Lilly. Initially, the PBMs generated the bulk of their profit. It started with small molecule brand drugs and the rebates from those drugs. Then you got smart, you cut that off. And then the PBMs moved it to mail order. Remember mandatory mail order? And now you can start to see now where specialty is the largest profit pool for PBMs. And I touched on it earlier. They move the goalposts every year to protect those profits at the expense of everyone but themselves. We're going to talk about the GPOs, and this is what I wanted to share with you today. It's fascinating, and I just learned something about a month and a half ago that was startling, but also it kind of excited me, the challenge of it all. I'm not here, and it sounds like it, I know. I'm not here to bash PBMs. I believe there's an opportunity to offer a lot of value when the PBM is acting in the best interest of its clients. No one is better positioned to help solve the challenges and problems associated with offering a pharmacy benefit to employees and members than a PBM. I'll have that conversation with anyone any day when the PBM is acting in the best interest of its clients. My issue is the low administrative fees that PBMs charge that augment the hidden cash flows, right? And so, or hide the hidden cash flows. So to better understand this, you got to understand the PBM business model and how it works. Let me just take a minute to run through this. I'm going to run through this very quickly because you're here, and don't leave because I'm saying this, because you want to hear this stuff multiple times for it to really stick. Pharmacy benefit managers contract with pharmacies in order to have sites from which prescription drugs can be dispensed to plan participants. We have to have clients to provide those services to. Third-party payers, employers, unions, government, public entities, school districts. It's a fairly long list of potential clients for PBMs. When a pharmacy dispenses a prescription to a PBM's plan participant, we reimburse that pharmacy for that dispensed prescription. If the PBM, and by the way, it doesn't matter whether or not the PBM is a good actor or a bad actor. It doesn't matter. If the PBM itself owns a pharmacy, it is a conflict of interest, period. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean bad things are going to happen, right? But history tells us some bad things are probably going to happen. That's what history tells us. But a bad thing doesn't have to happen, i.e. a spread, for it to be a conflict of interest. If a PBM owns a pharmacy, it is a conflict of interest. It is both the buyer and the seller. And so when we reimburse a pharmacy, we send that bill to our clients. Now, there's three problems, and I'm going to focus on everything to the right of your screen. I'm going to focus on everything over here. The left side of the screen is another webinar. But there's three problems when you look at this, let's call it a workflow, this diagram. First, the inflow of cash in the form of rebates is too low. I just showed you a slide from a reputable source, Nephron Research, that indicates where the PBM's profits are going, despite them telling you we don't make any money from rebates. So if the point of rebates is to get to the lowest net cost, and the PBM is keeping too much of those dollars or not informing their client of what they're keeping, it's a problem. So that's the first problem. The second problem is what the PBM's clients pay for prescription drugs. That's the second problem. That can be attributed to something we refer to as a spread. I'm going to get to that here in a second. Probably everyone on here has heard the term spread, but I'm going to show you how it manifests, which you may not have seen that before. And then the light bulb goes off. But here's the third problem. And I'm going to talk about spreads here on this next slide. But here's the third problem. Look who sits at the very top of this entire system. You do. Your clients do. Your company does. Yet you know the least about how this entire reimbursement and distribution system works. Moreover, the organizations that do have that knowledge have been reluctant to pass it on to you so that you could make better decisions. Information asymmetry. The drug pricing standard, which forms the basis for discounted prices, is known as average wholesale price, or ain't what's paid. Listen, people that don't have a background in pharmacy, that just kind of picked it up as they went along, or the business of pharmacy that don't have a background in it, they just kind of picked it up as they went along, will tell you that AWP is bad. No, it ain't. The manipulation of AWP is bad. It's like when people say money is the root of all evil. No, it isn't. Money doesn't spend itself. It doesn't steal itself. People do. AWP is a reliable benchmark if the entities using it and reporting it are reliable. So AWP is a list price. It does not reflect what's actually paid for the products. This is where the manipulation comes in. It's where it starts. It's like the MSRP on an automobile. Another price benchmark, maximum allowable cost, does reflect what the drugs actually cost. It is lower than AWP, but it is still not the actual cost of the prescription drug. So let's look at an example, and I'm going to show you how spreads take place. So let's look here at levothyroxine 100 microgram 30 tablets. Look at the AWP here for levothyroxine. So 2 price benchmarks, and there are many others, right? NADAC, AWP, UNC, MAC, wholesale acquisition cost, actual acquisition cost, average sales price, average manufacturer price. Get a topic for another webinar, and plenty of information out on the web about that. But let's look at the 2 primary price benchmarks today. So we got AWP, right? And then we've got MAC. And I'm going to show you how spreads take place. So we've got AWP, let's call it, keep it simple here, 560. Let's say you negotiate a generic effective rate, meaning no matter what price benchmark is being used to determine a third-party payer's cost, effectively, when we aggregate all those different price benchmarks, you're getting an 85% discount, right? So now, let's say 85% discount is a $475 discount, which now leaves the cost for levothyroxine $85. Now, look at what this product costs. This is what it costs the pharmacy to put this product on the shelf. You hear every day, you could, newspapers, National Community Pharmacists Association, independent pharmacies going out of business. You know why? Because PBMs often reimburse pharmacies less than what they pay for it. I seen it. I lived it. So let's say that this PBM is fair. It's reasonable. And it gives the pharmacy 100% markup plus a $2 dispensing fee. We know $2 is kind of high these days for a dispensing fee, unless you're working on an acquisition cost model. But $2 is kind of high, probably going to be something below a buck 25 somewhere in it. But listen, for our purposes, we're keeping it simple. Let's call it a $2 dispensing fee. That means the PBM's cash outlay for this product is $10. That, folks, is how the spread manifests. It would be very easy, because if you're getting 85% discount and it's real, most plan sponsors would be over the moon about that. But PBMs could make it look like you're getting 85%, report 85%, when the actual performance is 79. Huge difference. Huge difference. Now, with the MAC price, remember, PBMs have their own MAC list. They're proprietary to PBMs. They reflect what a third-party payer or a health plan will actually pay for the product. Let's say for this product, on the MAC list, the price is $15. And so now the PBM's out of pocket does not change. Now the PBM has a spread of $5. The state of Ohio, and I believe this lawsuit is still ongoing, they pivoted and decided, and we're going to talk about that more here in a second. The state of Ohio pivoted and decided, we're not going to focus on discounts off of AWP. We're not going to focus on ASP. Right? We're not going to focus on average manufacturer price or best price. We want to know how much we're paying you. And when they learned how much they were paying these 2 PBMs here, this was just in spreads. In 1 year, almost $250 million just in spreads. The rebate numbers, I don't even think have been reported. They they terminated those contracts on the spot. And so what I will say to you is this: if Greg Moody was on this call today, he would tell you to a woman or to a man that it's not information we've never had before. The problem is it was information that they never demanded before, to know exactly how much the PBM was making from the service. How do we get to $250 million in spreads? Here are just a couple ways. We don't have time today to go into all the different permutations of how PBMs can generate spreads like that. MAC list and rebates. As I mentioned, PBMs, the MAC list proprietary to PBMs. They control what drugs are on the MAC list, how many drugs are on the MAC list, and what the prices are for those drugs. And because of that, the employer's MAC list is less comprehensive and less aggressive than the pharmacy MAC list. In other words, there are less drugs on the MAC list, and the prices for those drugs on the MAC list aren't as low as those for the pharmacy, which creates what? A spread. Secondly, and we're getting to the part where I've added this is new just today, we're getting there. Again, rebates have many names. And when PBMs say we don't make any money from rebates, you have to be specific in how they classify a rebate. It's kind of like when a PBM says we're pass through. What they're really saying is we're passing through only what we're contractually obligated to pass through. That's what they're really saying. And so here's how rebate aggregation works. And I want you to understand this because the new content that I promised to share is coming up. But we send a file and it's automated, via SFTP to our rebate aggregator every month of all the claims that we adjudicate. And that rebate aggregator will then, because they have multiple clients, other PBMs, health systems, maybe even a large employer that's carved out rebate management. And so they will aggregate all of those claims. And then they will then send that file to the drug manufacturer. The drug manufacturer will then reconcile those claims against the contract that it has with the rebate aggregator. All right. Once those claims are reconciled against the contract, and this is all software that does this, then the PBM will then forward back to the rebate aggregator an explanation of payments and the monies owed for those rebates. Now, we're talking about rebate aggregation, and I talked about how PBMs classify what a rebate is. If you look at this definition, to the untrained eye, this looks reasonable enough. Administrator, PBM will pay customer 100% of rebates administrator receives in connection with prescription drug benefits. Well, so here's the problem with that. And this is public information, and here's the source here where this information was pulled to share with you here today. But here's the problem with that definition. And don't underestimate PBM's shrewdness in protecting its profit margins. That would be a mistake. Broward County sued Optum for rebates it believed it withheld that Broward County was owed. Broward County was able to later recover, I think it was something like $500,000 from this claim. And so what Optum was doing was, it has a subsidiary called the Coalition for Advanced Pharmacy Services. It had contracted with Express Scripts, who had the contract with the manufacturers. This is not uncommon. more about this later. This is not uncommon. This is common within the industry. I'm going to offer up a way how you can, pull more transparency out of situations like this. But uh, uh, Optum subsidiary had contracted with Express Scripts. So if you go back to the definition for rebates, based upon that definition, because Optum itself had not taken in those rebate dollars, it was reluctant or did not pass them back to Broward County. Its subsidiary collected the rebate dollars. Here's what I learned recently, folks. Listen, I don't know if there's any football fans out there. And if you're not a football fan, you're probably thinking, oh, here we go. Football season has started. Here's another jock talking about football. Can we talk about something else? Just give me a second here if you're one of those folks, okay? But Northern Illinois just beat University of Notre Dame. It's those kind of things when a Goliath is beaten at their own game. Northern Illinois was excited about going in to play Notre Dame, and Notre Dame underestimated them and lost. I think they were ranked number 5. Northern Illinois unranked, and they punched them right in the mouth. I love to see that. These 3 GPOs have essentially set it up, and I'm looking for my mouse here. They have set it up so that no matter who you are, you have to go through them to get rebates now. You have to go through, they've set it up with the manufacturers now. No matter who you are, your rebate dollars are going through them. Here's why I bring up the Notre Dame, Northern Illinois. Because we're going into their house and they're underestimating us and they think they're going to win. I love the challenge. I love the challenge. When I learned about this, all I could do was just kind of chuckle. Listen, if it wasn't for my disdain for these large PBMs that have built these GPOs, I would almost admire their brazenness. And without it, what would I have to get up for in the morning? I got a reason to get up now. And so here's the goal, what they're trying to do here. I talked about how rebates have many names. And what happens is between the pharmaceutical manufacturer and the PBM, they negotiate all these types of revenues. And now the PBM that's not acting in the best interest of its clients are trying to hold on to these dollars and only passing back those dollars. One thing about this, ultimately, this is where you want to be. If you don't know where your PBM sits and its aggregator sits in this diagram, you better find out. You better find out. Because when you get below that, the rebates, the amount passed back starts to get smaller and smaller as these entities are taking a chunk. But let me say this. You can be here You can be here and another PBM or uh, maybe a large employer that's carved out rebate management could be here. And that PBM that is here and you're here could get bigger rebates than you because they have a better contract. All things being equal, if you're here, you're going to get more rebates than an entity below you or your PBM or your rebate aggregator. But if the contract is opaque, it's riddled with hidden cash flows, but then another entity is below and its contract is radically transparent, they just haven't yet moved up the chain to get closer to the source yet, and they likely will if they have a strong contract. But if they have a strong contract here and yours is weak and you're here, they could potentially earn more rebate dollars than you do, even though you sit here. So you've heard it before. Contract is king. All that leads to this. And here's the, again, this is tongue in cheek, but the beauty in the PBMs that are leveraging information asymmetry is this. Their management fees are hidden in their clients' plan costs. It's not necessarily the drug cost where the trend is double digits every year. I've seen in many cases where the trend, the increase in the trend is attributed to what the PBM, not what you're paying them, because you haven't agreed on what you're paying them. This is the PBM paying itself. This is the PBM paying itself. You've just given them a blank check. Starting to sweat. So here's what I'm talking about here. Stay with me. What are we doing here? Oh, I'm making pretty good time. Stay with me here. Because you get on these webinars and the video conferencing and the attention span, you're lucky if you get 40, 45 minutes before someone goes to the fridge or takes a phone call or sends a text message. Don't do that to me. The take rate is what percentage of your drug spend or your pharmacy benefit, not the drug spend, of your pharmacy benefit costs can be attributed to what the PBM keeps in its bank account. No one is talking about that. The state of Ohio is. This is something we've coined at the Pharmacy Benefit Institute of America. We call it earnings after cash disbursements. And what this is everything in green at some point lands in the PBM's bank account. The money that leaves the PBM's bank account, a couple examples would be when the PBM reimburses a pharmacy when it dispenses a prescription to a plan participant. Another example would be a share of the manufacturer revenue. The revenue that the manufacturer pays the PBM, let's call it rebates, keep it simple. When it brings that money into its bank account and then passes a portion of it, ideally all of it, but a portion of it back to its clients. Whatever is left over is what you or your client is paying the PBM. If you don't go into a contract, well, let me back up. With the Consolidated Appropriations Act now and the push for radical transparency, the starting point for any negotiation with a PBM is you must, I don't care what the claims repricing looks like, I don't care what the discount guarantees look like, I don't care what the minimum rebate guarantees look like. We've seen that before, and it doesn't end well. The starting point is I've got to know what I'm paying you, because I know that you negotiate for us. You negotiate for us. That's your job. And whatever you negotiate, I want the full benefit, and I'm going to pay you for that service. It shouldn't be about marketing. At the end of the day, the client of a PBM should pay what the PBM pays. And then when you do that, you pay the PBM a reasonable fee for that service. That's how you get costs lower. That's how you do it. It takes guts. And I know the employees, you don't want to disrupt the employees. The PBMs are preying on the fact that you want your employees to be happy. They are preying on that. You can have both radical transparency, fiduciary, and employees that are satisfied with their pharmacy benefit. You can have both. Well, you're probably thinking, well, Tyrone, you're just talking a lot of smack. Show me something here. This is what happens when the PBM is acting in the interest of its best clients, of the best interest of its clients. And it happens fast. It never fails. We bring on a new client, costs drop by half, and they think this is an outlier. No, it's not. This is what's going to happen. I don't need 12 months to know what you're going to pay. Now, there might be some high cost claimants that come in or something like that. But outside of that, I know what you're going to pay. This is the broker for that client. Here's the problem. The incumbent PBM was Prime Therapeutics. And in the first year, all in, net of rebates, our admin fee, drug costs, everything. In the first year, costs went down to 23 bucks. And by the way, listen, we have a lot of programs in our toolkit for cost management, but much of this is just doing from what the PBM is supposed to do. Proper clinical programs and radical transparency, and the bottom falls out. The goal of a PBM is to get drugs in the medicine cabinets of the patients who need them to get better, to get the right drug at the lowest possible cost. It isn't so people can go to the pharmacy and get what they want because they saw a commercial on TV. And you can do that and still have high satisfaction scores. And so, and I'm wrapping up here, so stay with me. So, and yeah, I'm name dropping here. But anyway, I'm a graduate of the Michigan State School of Business. It's called the Eli Broad College of Business at Michigan State. I graduated. I knew what the business college's name was. I just didn't know why it was named after him. So it wasn't until after college I decided, I don't know what happened, but I decided to find who is this cat that the School of Business is named after. So I go and I pick up his autobiography called The Art of Being Unreasonable. Lo and behold, he's the only person, and maybe Elon Musk will sit next to him, but he's the only person to ever be a founder of 2 Fortune 500 companies, KB Home and Sun Life Financial. And he spent much of his life donating his money to healthcare research. Now, he also happened to be the youngest person to ever earn a CPA in the state of Michigan. So this is someone I'm going to listen to. I'm all ears. Talk. Write more books. But he says the key starts with education. And we're the only PBM to lead with that. Listen to me. I got one ask. I've doled out a bunch of valuable information today. Our sales team is going to reach out to everyone who signed up for this webinar. And they're going to gauge your interest in learning more, in doing more, in getting certified. If you don't believe you need the education, then get certified to prove it. Just take the call. And if you're not interested, say that, we'll move on. But there's continuing education up to 20 credit hours for life and health, pharmacists through ACPE, SHRM, and HRCI. And we're licensed in all 50 states to provide that CE. Your company will pay for it more than likely. What do you got to lose? That's my time today. I'll stick around just in case any questions come through, but you will get a recording of this webinar in your inbox tomorrow morning. I appreciate your time. Thank you.